All right. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everybody can hear me now. Make sure my audio is good. A moment ago, it was not, so you're sitting there listening to nothing. All right. All righty. So, for any of you that says, "Hey, no sound, no sound," that's me. All right. I'm trying. I'm trying. All right. Um, all right. So yeah, I turned on the wrong microphone. Um, but hopefully you all are doing well and and uh, and all that happy jazz. I've been this whole week. I've been remodeling a bathroom, so I'm exhausted. Tore out a shower, put in a new tub, new drywall, tile floors. It's been exhausting every evening after working, trying to get it done so I could get my house back in order. But yes. Anyway, so we're going to be doing a basically kind of a combination. I do this once a month or so. We're going to do a Q&A. Basically, any questions you guys and girls have, definitely ask. And then at the same time, I'm going to be talking about designing. We're going to kind of, Valentine's Day is coming up. So I thought we take a look at a couple of Valentine's Day projects, samples, and make some and things, and kind of go for there. Just something fun and all light while I'm answering um, your questions and stuff. All right, somebody said, can I turn the audio up? Stand by. Let me see if I can do that. All right, let me know. I don't want to peek too much, but let me know if this helps at all. If you guys and girls can hear me, and we'll go from there. All right, all right, all right. Okay. So let me know if that helps any at all as far as the audio is concerned. Okay, and let me know if I kind of ping too much. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, which of course you should be if you're watching me, down at the bottom of your YouTube screen, there's a little gear icon. Click on that icon, click on quality, and change that to 1080p. That'll give you a much clearer image. If you're in the basic, which is usually around uh, a lower resolution, it might make things blurry. So crank it up to high resolution. You should be fine. Okay. Um, let's go ahead and let's get into the Vectric software. Bum, 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 bum. Let's go to, what camera am I on? Camera 3. And there we go. And let's get me down here. All right, so you should still be able to see me and all that wonderful jazz. All right, so as I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask your questions. I'm going to do my best to monitor the stream. So if you see me looking over, I'm looking over at your questions and everything. And as we kind of get started with kind of creating a design and everything. Now I want to show you a couple of the projects that I was working on earlier that I sent out to our customers and stuff. And let's see here. The stream's bit rate is lower than recommended. All right, stand by, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go blank just for a minute. So you guys and girls, I'm gonna go blank for just a second, and I should pop back up. So give me just a moment. Okie dokie. All right, give me just a moment. Okay, I should be back now. All right, I had to change my bit rate and everything, but so I apologize about that. All righty, let's go ahead and open up a couple of projects just to get the ball rolling, give you some ideas and stuff, some projects and all. All right. So everybody should be able to see me. Wonderful. Excellent. I can't get my ball rolling perfectly today. So stand by a moment. Okay. All right. So have you ever been in have you ever been at like a craft store or whatever, and you see these new cool little frames? I love these little frames. I wish I had a actual one here where it's got like a picture frame where it's got like a binder clip, you know, that you can change out the pictures very easily and stuff. This particular project here is a nice little XOXO love sign with a little area for a 3x5 photo. You would attach a binder clip inside that frame on the top, and you know, you can change out the pictures and stuff. Fun little project for Valentine's Day. Give you something to think about. This is a little bit of a text on text type design here and all that wonderful jazz. And we're going to be creating a project here in a minute. I'm just kind of giving you some examples. So nice little binder clip would get screwed in here, and then you could change out the picture in that frame area. So a little love sign for your significant other. All right. And so that's a good little example of a little text on text. You could, you know, put in any kind of little message that you wanted. Let's see here. Here's a favorite one. Let it open up. And I want to thank everybody that's popped in. For everybody, I definitely want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. We're gonna get in. We're gonna start designing, but literally, this is kind of also a Q&A as well. And I know while I'm, you know, kind of showing things, you're focused and paying attention. But you know, ask some questions. If you have questions, that's what the main goal of tonight is I'll be able to jump in and kind of demonstrate or show to answer some of the questions you may have. Here's another cool little sign. This is by no means my design. I created this design, but as far as the Cupid's Delivery Company, lots of love. I saw that in, I think it was on Pinterest or somewhere, and it was a really nice sample. And so I got this little street sign. It's blank, so someone would, as far as what goes in this little heart street sign, maybe they were together 5 years, you know, and they would put the number 5, or 20 years, they'd put the number 20. So like that little mile per hour sign, or how many miles it is to infinity, whatever, you know, a fun little sign. These are a couple of projects that the Spindle TV subscribers for training that they got. So it was a cool little project. There are some little heart designs and things. Nice little street post. So give you just some examples or you know, inspiration. And thanks, Kevin. That truck model is pretty sweet. I want to say it's not really a like back in the day. My favorite truck. It was my first vehicle that I got to drive. I learned how to drive a stick shift on an old International pickup truck that was my grandfather's, and it kind of reminds me of that. But it's a Ford, I think. Yeah, it's a Ford F1. think we can see the F1 there. Yeah, I kind of liked that truck. I thought it was pretty cool. And you see that it's really common nowadays, that little truck. It's mostly red, you know. I got a store across the street called Your Heart's Desire, and they got all these signs with these little trucks. These trucks, you know, and they're popular. So I thought I would do a little bit of a Valentine's Day with a truck. Yeah, I thought it was pretty sweet. So that's another design that we can look at. And then, of course, finally is something new that I haven't, you know, seen much of. I saw some on Etsy and everything, but I thought it had a cool meaning. The infinity heart, right? Now, this is just the model that I created of an infinity heart, but it could be changed up as a V-Carve. You could put your name or some kind of message on this infinity symbol. You could put your names on the heart here and all kinds of things. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. So I was playing around with that and all that wonderful stuff. All right, so there's some examples of some cool little just Valentine's Day projects and stuff. Let's go ahead and make one of our own. So I'm actually going to be working in V-Carve Pro tonight. And if any of you have any questions, definitely throw them out there. And I'm going to do my best to catch them all and stuff. And we'll go from there. But let's create a project. Let's create a new project here. And I'm going to go with a board that's about 18 inches in length. So that's going to be the length of it. It's going to be a single-sided project right as of right now. I may decide to switch it to a two-sided project in a moment, if depending on where we progress. The height of the sign, I want to, you know, something that's appealing to the eye is the golden ratio, right? I like the idea of you know, a project having a bit of a ratio to it. The golden ratio is kind of a very appealing, you know, mathematically perfect square and stuff. And so I kind of like a rectangular, and I'm gonna go 10 by 18 by 3/4. Now, when it comes to the golden ratio, as far as, you know, since I brought it up and stuff, that is where you take something and multiply it by 1.618, and of course it goes on even more than that. I don't think it goes on like infinity, like pi does, but it's 1.618. That's 3 decimal points, and then it 0, 3. I only know it to 5 decimal points, but it goes on beyond that. But I think for the most part, if you take your object, what we're going to do here, we'll kind of figure out what our golden ratio is here. But if we multiply it by 1.618, we'll be good. Okay, and so just as an example, I'm going to go with the 18 by 10 for right now, but let's go ahead and draw a rectangle. And I'm going to draw a rectangle that is 10 by 10 with square corners. So let's go 10 by 10. All right. And I'm going to slide this over to the corner here. Okay, cool. And I'm going to draw a diagonal line from here to here. Okay, and space bar. Now, if I do this right, we're going to find out. I'm going to take this. I'm experimenting with you guys and girls right now. If I take this diagonal line and I rotate it and I change the pivot point to the corner right here, okay, and I pivot that line down, straight down across, snap it to there. That line's length, which is, if I go into the size tool here, that line's length is 10 inches, good. But at the end of my line, I don't know if you guys girls can see it. Let me straighten that line back up. Of course, I rotated a little bit too far. Snap. Is my smart snapping on? Why aren't you snapping? I had that problem the other night. But if I stretch this rectangle out now, oh, not move, Laney, stretch. If I stretch my rectangle out now, and I snap it to the end of that line, let me make sure I'm snapping to the end of that line. Boom, right there. That size, 14.1421 by 10 is a golden ratio sign. Now, let's do some calculations and see how close I came with that little scenario. So let's open up a calculator. I got to open up a calculator. I'm one of those. I'm Generation X, but I still need a calculator, right? You know, I can count with my hands, but no, I'm just kidding. So let's go ahead and go 10 times 1. I just had it. 0.618. I'm gonna stop there. I'm not gonna go. I could go 03, but did I do that right? 1.618. Yeah. That gives me 16.18. So I'm not quite at 16. I'm at 14 there. How am I missing? How'd I miss? How'd I miss? That's right. Aw, damn, I was going to show you guys something thinking I'm knowing something, but I then screwed it up. Now I got to cheat. Stand by here a second. I've got to cheat. A over B equals A plus B over A. A plus B over A equals 1.618. Okay. So 10 by the golden ratio, 16.8. Okay. All right. Dadgummit. Anyway, that's not the golden ratio. I thought that would work. I don't know why it didn't. Usually it does. A would be my 10 inches. A plus B over A. I don't know how. I'm not going to sit here and try to do algebra with you. So let's go ahead and change that up to 16.18, just as an example, by 10, and that would be a golden ratio box. Wow. Okay. All right, so we're going to go with that. Now, for all of you that are sitting there, nope, you did it wrong, Lenny. Here's how you do it. Go ahead and jump in on the chat and let me know what I screwed up there. Let's see what I did screw up here. So someone says, 1.618. Oh, somebody jumped in. Troy. Thanks, Troy, for giving us the whole number there. The square root of 10 by 10 plus 10 by 10 is 14.142. So Sam Bailey comes in. Now, that's more what I got because I was going by the diagonal. So I must have got somewhere close to what Sam was saying. But here we go. We got Suicidal All Times is asking a question. We'll go ahead and jump in that. And we're going to go with this pretty looking box right here for our design, and we're going to call that good. I thought I was going to throw in a cool little lesson, but I screwed it up because I didn't prep ahead of time. But I could have swore that if I took a diagonal and I straightened that diagonal down, that would give me the ratio that I need for a golden triangle. I'm going to look into that, and we'll get into that another time. All right, so Suicide at All Times says, when V-carving, do you full depth cut or find step depths better for weaker machines? Good question. So when V-carving, do you take a full depth cut or making step cuts? Now, I typically, like as an example, when I'm working with a 60-degree quarter-inch V-bit, more specifically, the Whiteside 1541 V-bit, it has a cutting height, a cutter height of 0.21. 0.21, yeah. And my cut depth on that bit is 0.2. So I'm just slightly under the full cutting height of that particular bit. And I take it in full pass, a full pass. Now, as far as the definition of a weaker machine, I don't know if you're referring to like an X-Carve or Shipoko or a Bob CNC or something. I don't know what would be classified as a weaker machine, a smaller machine. Even with the mini carvers, I take it at the full pass. Our mini carver, I take it at the full pass on the V-Carves. Typically, I don't step or make pass steps, small pass steps with a V-bit when I'm V-carving. Generally, it's the full, pass step. Unless it's a wider cut, then of course it's automatically going to take passes. It's going to take those 0.2 passes each time till it gets to its full depth of cut. You can't take it in one plunge if you're working with wider letters and things. So as an example on that suicide, if I let's go ahead and grab the letter O for an example. And let's stretch that O out. And V-carve that. I don't need a flat depth. The 60-degree V-bit, like I said, 0.2 is the pass depth here. If I calculate this, it's going to want to cut through, so I will have to set a flat depth. Let's go 0.625, 5/8. And in these wider areas here, it is taking multiple passes, to get to those wider areas, because of that 0.2 and everything. And in some of these areas here, it's taking, less passes and stuff, depending on what the width and everything is. I tend to, take those full passes. And that my 0.2 is the full cutter height. With a 90-degree V-bit, I believe or even a 60-degree with a half-inch head, the cutter height is 435, I believe, 0.435. And on that one, I don't take the full pass on that. It is 0.2. 0.2 is kind of my cutoff. So yeah, I guess to answer your question is depending on the bit I'm using, I am taking a full pass with a 1/4 inch 60-degree V-bit, but I'm taking pass steps, depending on my letters, of course, and my objects and all, if I'm using a wider V-bit, because 0.2 is my pass depth setting and everything. But generally on the wider areas, it's taking multiple passes anyway. It's not doing it in one plunge. In shallower areas, it may be taking it in one cut and things, or, a couple of cuts and stuff. So that was a whole lot of nothing. Basically, I would probably say multiple passes would be good, but if you are working with a smaller diameter 60-degree V-bit and everything, 0.2 is a sufficient pass depth. I believe most machines can handle that, a 0.2 cut depth. And that's, whether I am, with my 60-degree 1/4 inch or my 60-degree half-inch, 0.2 is kind of my cutoff and everything. I don't know if that answered the question, but we'll go there. We'll go there. But if you listen and you observe. If your machine is chattering or struggling and things because of that pass depth, or it's loud and whining at you like a hungry puppy at feeding time kind of thing, then you can reduce those pass steps and things, so it's not struggling so much. But 0.2 is kind of my cutoff as far as anything. If I'm going deeper, like this was going 0.625, it's taking those multiple passes. A V-Carve does all that for me, right? I just set my tools pass depth and it'll figure it out. Hopefully that answered your question. I'm not sure if I did a good job at answering that question, but because it was around about a whole lot of craziness. But 0.2 is my cutoff. So anything bigger than that, it's making multiple passes. So I guess my answer is yes. Yes, make multiple passes. And now he follows up with oh, and is there a way to force the program to use VBit in 3D? And when you are doing a 3D finish cut on your tool, it's going to show you the type of tools that you can use. So we can use V-bits, we can use bead bits, we can use end mills for, believe it or not, 3D finish cuts. It even shows it. In the new 10.5, it's only going to show you the bits that would be suitable or that you could use with that particular project. So you can set it up to do a V-bit with a finish cut on a 3D model. I do not know how that would look. I've never tried. A finish cut, when it comes to 3D model finish, it's a ball nose, a tapered ball nose or a straight ball nose, depending on what you've got. 32nd, 16th inch, 8th inch ball nose, 8th inch, 16th are kind of your go-to bits, but a ball nose is a finished bit because it can, you know, get over those hills and contours and everything. With a V-bit, you're working just on that point, because even on a ball nose, with most 3Ds, it's riding right on the ball. You know, and it's doing that detail work, and you're only stepping over 8%. You know, that's just a few thousandths of an inch for a nice finished 3D. Well, with a tip of a V-bit, that fine point, you're kind of working that fine point, and I'm not 100% sure what that finish would look like. You can use a V-bit, but I can't say what that finished bit would look like. If you do use a V-bit, let's say, for instance, that I choose a 60-degree half-inch V-bit here, I'm definitely going to want to tighten up and make the step over smaller, because I'm working with just the point of that bit. Again, I cannot guarantee what that would look like. We can take a look at what a 3D cut would look like with a V-bit to give you an example, and we'll kind of see for ourselves together. So let's do that. Let's go just into our clip art here, and in our clip art, I'll just grab an animal. Let's grab a horse. A horse is a horse, of course. Okay. And he's a pretty decent size for a model. Let's go ahead and we'll use the model as the boundary. We will not let the bit go past the boundary. We'll do a raster cut, cutting with the grain, and calculate that. Let that calculate. Okay, and then we're also going to, let's reset that preview, and we're also going to create another 3D finish cut. We're going to create another 3D finish cut, and this time we're going to use a ball nose bit. In this case, I'll use a 16th inch tapered ball nose, right? We'll calculate that as well. And we'll do kind of a side-by-side comparison. Now, the one thing I didn't do on my V-bit is I didn't change my step over, so we'll do that as well. Let's see what it looks like with the standard step over of 4% of the bit, and then we'll tighten it up even more, see if we can get a cleaner cut, right? So let's first of all, let's take a look at, let's zoom in on this, and let's take a look at the 3D finish cut with a ball nose bit. All right, we'll go from there. Okay. So even the 16th inch ball nose bit, because of the size of the model, you can see the tool marks here around the hips and the mane and everything. The tail, you can see the tool marks in there. But on those curves and contours, we do get a pretty decent smooth cut. All right, now let's look at it with a V-bit stepping over 4%. And then we'll tighten up that step over, and we'll compare that as well. So let's preview. Maybe. Preview the selected toolpath. It's not even creating the toolpath. Hold on a second now. Hold on a minute. let's go back in here. Let me look at my material setup. At the top, all that good stuff. Let's go back into here and let's use the model as the boundary. Let's tighten up that step over. Let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go down to 1% step over. And a finish cut, I may have to increase my pass step because a finish cut goes to its full pass, right? Maybe my I don't think, no, my pass step shouldn't have anything to do with it. I wonder if it's, even though it shows the bit, if it's not going to calculate it. That might be what you mean by forcing, you know, having to force it. I don't think we can force it if it's not going to create it. Let's find out. Because it didn't even create, it didn't even preview the toolpath. So we got the toolpath preview here, right? So we've got the toolpath preview, but it is, let's preview. There we go. Wonder what that was a moment ago. It wasn't previewing. Now, of course, we would do a 3D rough cut, right? We would do a 3D rough cut to hog away the waste material. So what you're seeing here is I'm just doing a finish cut, right? So it's taking away all the waste material as well. We definitely do a rough cut to get rid of that waste material so the bit can focus. But right now you're just seeing a finish cut. So you're seeing a lot of material being removed, and that's not what we would normally do. We do a rough cut first, okay? But I can already tell when it's finished here, we'll be able to spin and get closer, but I can already tell it's looking a little bit rough. A little bit rough. Okay, now Rodney is jumping in suicide and saying he used a 30-degree V-bit on a 3D and it turned out great. He said his he did it in Aspire. Well, let's look at this. Rodney, since you jumped in with that, can you kind of give an idea what your step over was? Because what I'm seeing here, which you'll be able to look at in just a moment, is when I look at this with even a 1% step over, I'm seeing a lot of not so good looking cutting here. Okay, now if I come in here and let's look at a 30-degree V-bit, right? So let's come over here and do I even have a 30-degree V-bit in my list of tools? Now, Rodney, be specific. Did your 30-degree V-bit, was it an engraving bit with a flat tip of like 0.005? Or was it a true V-bit? Let me know that as well. Because what I'm seeing here with this 60-degree V-bit, I am seeing a cut. Let me see what my step over was. 1%. So 5 thousandths of an inch. 3 thousandths is a human hair. So 5 thousandths of an inch step over. I am not seeing too desirable of a cut, but it'd be something you would experiment with. But Dan, jump in there and okay. Rodney. Yeah. I don't know, man. When it comes to 3D models, suicide at all times, if you can get access to a ball nose bit, you're going to be much better off because that ball is going to be able to go over those contours and curves. Now, I can't really say from like actual at the table experience because I've never used a V-bit to do a 3D finish cut. It might be something I'll experiment with. and everything. But Rodney, he said, he's done it, and it looked good. So I'm gonna have to take someone who's done it's kind of word on that. But as far as my personal experience and from what I see, if I saw this in my preview, I would be hesitant and I would immediately steer away from the bit, right? So it would have to be something to experiment with for sure, but you should be able to use a V-bit in your Vectric software to answer your question altogether. Okay? All right, cool. All right, let's get back to our design as we go through, and let's see if I have any other questions pop in. But thanks, Suicidal, for asking those questions and stuff, and thanks, Rodney and Dan and all, for chiming in on that. But Dan, yeah, if you take a look, Rodney, and you can kind of give Suicide at all times some maybe what your step over was, and he can experiment with a bit, something to give a try. All right, so what I'd like to do with this project here is get it in the middle of the screen. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to create a border. So I'm going to drag a box, a rectangle. I'm snapping to this corner and dragging a rectangle and snapping to my other corner here. That's usually how I start off my borders, because once I have that outline around the perimeter of the board, I can offset it inward whatever distance I want my boundary or border to be. In this case, I'm going to go with a 3/4 inch border. I do want sharp corners. I do want to delete the original because I don't want that outside boundary. And I want to go ahead and offset that to create that boundary. Cool? Cool. Now, I like going back into the rectangle tool, and I want to give this a little bit of a decorative radius. Now, when I'm in the rectangle tool, I can absolutely type in a radius here, and I'm going to go 3/4 inch radius to create this kind of decorative internal radius. But I do have these in 10.5. I do have these green nodes that I can increase or change those radiuses manually, right, based on what I want. And notice as I change them and everything, it updates automatically over in the tool, right, over here in the tool and everything. And so I'm going to go back to a 3/4 inch radius here, and that's going to be my boundary. Okay. All right. Hey, Jim, welcome to the party. Okay, so it was an engraving bit. So that makes a big difference, Rodney and Suicide all times. It was an engraving bit which has a flat tip. So just to kind of, let's circle back to that for a minute. And let's grab that horse again. Okay. And let's create that finish cut again, this time using an engraving bit. Engraving bit has a flat tip on it. It doesn't come to a straight point. So let's come down here and grab an engraving bit. Here's a 20-degree bit with a 0.02. Do I have any other engraving bits? Bear with me a second. Let me see if I have any other sneaky ones in here. I don't have any other engraving bits. Let me just make sure. Yeah, that's the only engraving bit I've got for right now. But with that engraving bit, calculating that, I'm going to get a much different result because I have a flat tip that will, and again, I'm not doing a rough cut, I'm just doing the finish. And by the way, let me go back in there on that engraving bit. Let me see what my step over was. Let's see what a 2% step over, right? So let me change that for sure. Let's go to a 2% step over here, and let me recalculate that. And while that's calculating, we'll I done shocked the system right there with that one. 2% step over. But we'll let that calculate, and we'll go back to our design because that's going to take a moment to calculate. But let's go ahead and go go back to our project here. 16.18 by 10. All right, so what you saw me do, I'm going to really quickly repeat and do it again. So apply, close the tool, offset inward 3/4 of an inch. I forgot to delete the original, so let me do that now. And then I'm going to change this to a 3/4 inch radius. All right, cool. Now, I'm really liking those picture frames that you will see like at a Hobby Lobby and things like that. That's not like your standard picture frame. It's one of those things where it might be a paper clip where you can snap a photo in there, or on strings, or you know, a binder clip or something where you can change photos out. I really like that idea because, you know, depending on my mood or depending on, you know, a photo or something or whatever, I can kind of, if I'm changing kind of my decor, yeah, it's just as easy for me to take the back of a photo and put it in, but we very rarely do that. But a lot of times, you know, I can change out, you know, pictures and stuff depending on what it is. I really like that. So I kind of want to deal with that again. And I find that either a 3x5 or a 4x6 horizontal looks good. Vertical could be a 3x5, 4x6 portrait, as you would call it, would look okay as well. But sometimes it's hard to find photos with that kind of aspect ratio. Normally they're kind of horizontal, and if I'm going to cut the photo up or whatever to fit in, you know, generally that 3x5 horizontal or 4x6 horizontal is what I have in my photos. I very rarely have vertical photos where I held the camera, you know, in a vertical state back in the day. You know, with my phone it's different, right? So I want to come in here and create an area, and I'm going to go with a 3x5. I want square corners. 3x5. 4x6. 4x6. Let's go 4x6. I got plenty of room. 4x6. Okay. And on this one, I'm not necessarily, I want a little bit of definition, right? I don't want a big lip or anything. So I will be kind of pocketing this in a bit for the photo and the binder clip, but I will also be pocketing around it some. Just a small amount. I'm going to take a little bit off just to give a little bit of definition on that picture area, because I'm going to be V-carving over on this left side. Or I might be doing raised text, or I might be doing a 3D model. It just depends on what the design is and what you want. And let's go take a peek back and see if our calculation finished. It did. So let's take a quick look. Oh, it's still calculating. Still calculating. So we'll let it finish up as we move on here. So what I want to do is I'm going to offset this outward, this rectangle here. I'm going to offset it outward just slightly. And I'm going to go probably 1/4 of an inch. It'll be good. And we'll go there. And so now I have two boundaries here that I'm going to be pocketing between, to taking a top layer of that material off, just bringing it down a little bit. Maybe a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 of an inch, not a whole lot. And then I have an inner area that I'm going to pocket down where my photo will go in my little binder clip or paper clip. They have these cute little ones, you know, that are kind of antiquish you can find on Amazon. They're not like the black binder clips that you would go to Staples Office Supply, you know, to get. You can get some that are kind of bronzed or kind of rustic looking and stuff, and they're small, and they're kind of made for these type of little projects. And you can buy them in packs of like 10 or a dozen and things like that. It's pretty cool if you're kind of doing crafty type stuff. So for the text here, or for what I'm going to do over here in the V-Carve, I'm probably going to do a bit of raised, okay, and and let's go ahead and come up with something kind of cute, right? Okay, so let's open up our text box here, and it could be a text in text design. It could be a text on text design. It could be just a nice little your little quote. You know, you and I go together like moonshine in a mason jar, whatever. You know, and that's one of my favorite redneck quotes. But anyway, um, but be creative, have some fun, and make something very simple for your loved one or your Valentine this year. Let's go ahead and let's create a bit of a text on text, if you will. And I'm going to go with a capital. That's not the right font. Laney. Let me find the right font here. By the way, speaking of fonts, since we're talking about design, Word, W-O-R-D, Mark, M-A-R-K, .it is great for choosing fonts. Wordmark.it is great for choosing fonts. When you're looking at the text box and all, you have an ABCD 1, 2, 3. It's not a real lot of visual differences there, you know, as far as you can't really get that visual picture. But wordmark.it will show you all of your fonts. Let's grab a browser here and let's jump over there real quick. Wordmark. I don't know why I capitalized mark, but .it. Word Market is what I call it. With Word Market, we can type in a word or phrase. In this case, I want to type in, you know, the word "you" in capital letters. And now it'll show me all of the fonts on my computer, and it'll kind of give me, you know, something nice to visually look at so I can pick what I want. I really like wordmark.it for that because it makes designing and all much easier for me when I'm, instead of just going, oh, I don't like that font, I don't like that font, you know, I can just kind of take a look, scan it, and then go from there, right? And I am going to get to y'all's questions if y'all have any questions and everything as we go through. So go ahead and pop those questions in, and we'll get it. So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a text on text, and then we'll look at it in other ways as well too. So the word "you" is going to be the larger of the two. And so what I want to do is kind of find something that I think looks good and it stands out. A little bit of a bold. I want something a little bit bold, but not, it doesn't really have to be the way that I'm going to do it. I like something with a little bit of style. What do I want, ladies and gentlemen? What do I want? Black River doesn't, I mean, it looks okay, but it doesn't look okay. Let's go with something whimsical. Something a little bit out of my norm. We're gonna go with whimsy. That's the word I'm looking for. A little whimsy. Okay, I'm gonna go with this right here. Marketing script. It's a little bit of scripty. No, actually, I'm gonna go with Comica Title Axis. Comica Title Axis. So let's go back over there and change that. I'm going to hit the letter K on my keyboard, get down to the K's. Comica Title Axis. There we go. And let's kind of fit that in right about there. Cool. All right, now I'm going to come in and that was an M3. I don't know where that came from. How about let's do me and and let's change that up. Now on this one, I'm going to change it up to something a little bit scripty, a little bit different, and it's going to be much smaller because, of course, you is more important than me. Just kidding. All right, so I'm going to kind of hang that off right about there. All right, cool. Let's take a pause for a second. Let's pop back over. Let's finish up one question at a time. So we've got our toolpath calculator. Let's preview that. This is with an engraving bit. We'll let that kind of cut out, and then we'll come back and look at it while it cuts out. We won't sit there and watch wood carve. And then while that's happening on, let's go over and look at some of the questions and all. Darwin says, if you do a project on one side, can I flip the board over and put made by, etc. on the back? Do I have to do it as a two-sided project? You do not have to do that as a two-sided project, Darwin. Basically, if you're carving, on one side, and it's all, finish that carving and everything, you can take that board and flip it over, and you can design, a second project on another layer even, another layer. You can create your made by, Darwin Bradley, or made with love, or whatever the case may be, kind of thing. You do not have to do it as a two-sided project. The ability to do it as a two-sided project, or to the ability to do a two-sided project is more for if I'm doing, like a puzzle piece. Let's say, for instance, this is not a puzzle piece. This is a flashlight. But let's say out of a flat piece of material, 1.5 inch thick material, I was cutting this flashlight. I'm going to be cutting half of this light on one side of the board, then I'm going to flip the board over and carve the other half, and when it cuts out and everything, I'll have a 3D object, right, out of a flat board. That's where a two-sided project comes in. Chess pieces and things like that. Picture frames, where I'm carving the picture, and when I flip it over, I want to carve the window, excuse me, where the glass and frame go. I want to make sure it's perfectly aligned with my project, so a two-sided project is ideal for that and things. But if you're just flipping the board over to put a little made by or inscription, it does not have to be a two-sided project. Good question. Cool. All right, let's take a peek back over at our horse. He's still carving halfway, but let's kind of look at him so far. Much cleaner with that. We're doing a 2% step over, but you can even see here, much cleaner on the curves and contours with that engraving bit because of that flat tip. So that's going to be the key. V-bit, no, right? Engraving bit, yeah. Tight enough step over and a fine enough tip, you can get a pretty decent cut out of it with that. But again, I'm a big advocate of ball nose bits or tapered ball nose bits. But yes, very doable. So we don't even really need to go any further. We can see, we'll let it finish out as we're going on, but we can see that it's getting a much better result than the V-bit did itself. Okay. Hello, Sylvia. How are you doing? Let's make sure I haven't missed any questions and everything. So I've got the me and you here. You're you and me. Me and you. And right now, as you see it, it's kind of laid out almost like a text on text. And that's kind of what I'm going to go for here. But let's go in and we gotta have a combination of things going on. So this will be kind of a text on text raised. We'll put in some a nice little subscription, or not subscription, a nice little inscription, right? Inscription. Why am I getting tongue-tied on the word inscription? But we're going to put a nice little insert there, and then our photo pocket and everything. We got to be mindful, but though, that we're going to be milling this pocket down and everything just a slight amount to give this frame area here a little bit of a raise, just to kind of have it stand out a bit. When I say stand out, remember now, all this is going to be pocketed out because of the text on text here. Okay, so don't get me twisted on that one. It's going to be pocketed out, But what I want is, let me, oh, I can't tilt to 2D. I want my frame standing just a little bit proud by 1/8 of an inch or so of the actual letters and everything else. Okay, so it's not like I'm gonna have just this kind of raised outline, then my flat surface, and then this frame sticking up. No, it's not gonna be like that at all. Uh, there's gonna be a pocket there. You'll see it all come together. But I just want the frame. I want to kind of give it steps or definition. I don't want everything on the same level. I want the frame just a little bit proud of this text on text area. And then, along with the text on text, I'm going to do some V carving down here in the bottom. Let's throw in some text, right? Let's see. You and me will be stronger together, better together, stronger together. Stronger is a good word. Let's change that handwriting a little bit, and let's make it a little bit smaller, of course. And I wrote this as a text block because I'm going to break this up into 2 separate text lines here in a second. But stronger together. And then let's throw in, let's say that we were together since April 1945. Okay. All right. So we've been together a long time. 70 years, right? Means could be the last year for one of us. No, I'm just kidding. 75 years, something like that. But still hanging strong. Don't worry, ladies. You girls outlive us men 10 times fold over. All right, so let's change the size of this. That was terrible. Let's go 0.75. And I'm going to go bold on this. And I also want to go bold on this as well. I like bold. Give it a little bit of life and all. And now I'm going to break. I'm going to right click on this stronger together. And I'm going to break it, that text block, into text lines, because what I want to do is I want to kind of move this over. And I want to bring this over here a little bit like this. And then what I'd like to do is I'm actually going to steal the vector of that infinity heart, right? I'm going to throw that infinity heart where it is a little V-Carve. But I don't have that DXF of that project I drew, so I'm going to steal it from my Aspire project. So I'm going to open up Aspire real quick. All right, while that's opening, let's go back and look at this horse. A horse is a horse, of course. And let's zoom in here. And yeah, I mean, I still have my tool marks. I'm going to have a little bit of sanding to do, but it doesn't look too awful bad on that detail, you know. And this was with a 20-degree V bit with a 0.02 flat engraving bit, should I say, with a 0.02 tip. Now, I could go with a finer tip with a tighter step over, and I might get closer lines and all. But even at that, that's not too shabby. Got some work to do to sand it up to get it finished ready and everything. But, you know, not bad at all. And I got the hiccups, so bear with me 1 second. Let me wash that down for a minute. I don't know where the hiccups came from, but... So with an engraving bit, not too shabby, but a V-bit was not an option, right? All right, glad we were able to go through that. Let's go ahead and close that out. And let's get back to our, over here on Aspire, I wanted to grab my infinity heart design because I'm going to steal the vector because I don't have a DXF of it or anything. Should the... and me, you and me, right? You and me, should it be reversed? Probably so. Probably so, Mike. Let's grab this vector real quick. Let me grab this vector here. I don't want the model, just the vector. And I'm going to right click and copy that. And let's go back over here and right click and paste. Oh, it's not going to let me paste into, that's right. It's not going to let me paste from Aspire to V-Carve. So I got to export it. Export as a DXF. Infinity Heart. Let's go to downloads and save it there. And I've got to import it in here. File, import that vector. And let's go to the downloads and grab it that way. All right, cool. All right, let's minimize that down and we'll get it into position in a minute. But let's take a look at Mike. Mike Peary asked, hey, should the me and you, should it be reversed, right? So what I was going with there, Mike, was me and you being kind of the main word, right? But you said, should it be reversed to and me, like you being the main word and me, right? So let's vote on that, guys and girls. Which way do you think it should be? Should it be you, since that's the kind of the main word in the background, and me? Or me and you? What is the proper English on that? You and me, right? You and I. You and I. You and me. You and me. We'll use the word me. Let's not change it to I, but you and I. He might be right on that. So let's take a look. You guys vote on it and we'll do it whichever way. But let's go back and change that around. And me. Probably, I think Mike, I think you're on to something. Just by looking at it, it looks like it makes more sense. And me. Yeah, and me. You guys, yeah, Mike, good call on that one. Thanks for pointing that out to me. It makes more sense, right? It actually makes more sense when you're looking at it and reading it. Okay, cool. Good call. All right, I'm going to group. Letter G on the keyboard is group. I'm going to group that infinity heart together, that vector there. And I want to fit it in here somewhere. So bear with me a second while I do a little bit of rearranging here. We're going to slide this over a little bit. I'm going to scale this down ever so slightly. Move that over right about there. Got all kinds of things going on here. All right. Now, I got the date, like the date that they're together under this picture, and I kind of want to center it. So I'm going to hold down my shift key and grab this rectangle here. You know, I've got the April 1945 first, and then this selected last, the rectangle here. So I can go to my alignment tool and use the align to selection left to right to get it centered on that rectangle there. Okay, and it is centered even though it doesn't look it. It's because the A kind of sweeps out there. So, all right, cool. Guys and girls, be sure if you have any questions, it doesn't have to be about this design or anything in general. If you have a question, ask your questions. And let's see here. Suicide All Time says, you and me are rhythmic. You and me were meant to be in the place that we be la-di-di. There you go. All right. And so, okay. So let's call this, let's bring this frame up just a little bit. Right about here. And right about, yeah, we'll go there. And let's call this, for one, we can do a couple of designs as we're answering questions and all, but let's call this done. Let's get ready to toolpath this, okay? So the one thing I want to do is, first and foremost, I want to go ahead and select this outer border and this of the frame little picture area and this here, and I'm going to pocket it. Okay, I'm going to do a pocket toolpath. And I'm going to take a small amount off. I'm going to go a 16th, let's go an eighth of an inch. Okay? Because I want the frame to be a little bit proud, because this thing is going to have levels. Okay? It's going to have levels and everything to it. And so for the tool, I'm going to choose a 1/4 inch end mill and select that. And let's go ahead and we'll go with a raster cut. I do want to cut with the grain. I don't want to do an offset cut around and around and around. So I'm going to do a raster cut, and I will do a profile pass last at the end, kind of cleaning up around the edges and stuff. And I do want to, I'm going to add in a ramp actually too as well in this pocket. And I'm going to go with a 1/2 inch ramp, just kind of a nice ramp to help extend the life of my bit. So let's calculate that out. All right, let's preview that visible toolpath. We're just going to kind of pocket that down 1/8 of an inch. Let's see here. Crisscross crafts. It works well for a rest machining operation where it's highly detailed. So Chris, I think you're jumping in on the V-bit discussion, engraving bit V-bit discussion on the horse, where you would use a larger ball nose or something first, and then the V-bit, the engraving V-bit, coming back and doing the highly detailed areas, or vice versa, Chris? So would the V-bit, would the engraving bit be the last step to get those tighter details on that rest machining, or would the ball nose bit be last? So think of the ball nose bit, the larger diameter ball nose would be first, and then the V-bit touching up those smaller areas. That could be a scenario as well. Again, I can't speak from experience on this because I've never used a V-bit in a 3D model cut or an engraving bit to that matter. And it's something that I'm going to have to now expand my knowledge base a little bit. And I'm going to have to go out there and play with it and experiment and see what that is. So it's kind of brought a little bit of enlightenment to me, because probably, oh my goodness, already done forgot. Rodney. Rodney's probably not the only one that uses a V-bit. Chris even has some knowledge of it, you know, talking about it works well for rest machining. So, you know, he may have done it once or twice. I've just never had that opportunity, you know, to do it. So, and everything. All right. So you can see our little pocket here. All right. So we basically, all we did was just skim off that 1/8 of an inch pocket there. Right. Cool. All right, while we're in the pocketing phase, let's go ahead and select this inner vector here. And I'm just going to bring that down a little bit, enough for my small little clip and a photo to kind of sit in. So I'm going to do a pocket cut on it as well. And now I got to be mindful that my 1/4 inch bit is only, I'm not going to get sharp corners in here and everything. So they're going to be slightly radiused. I'm okay with that, you know. If I wasn't, then I'd use a smaller diameter bit, but I'm okay with my 1/4 inch bit doing this pocket and giving me those little rounded radiuses there that doesn't have to be sharp corners. Now, if I wanted it to be sharp corners, then I would do this as a V-Carve toolpath with a flat depth, so I get those nice sharp corners and beveled edges or something. But I'm just going to do it as a pocket with a 1/4 inch. And let's go with a raster again, and let's go with a depth of... Let's go with a depth of 1/4 of an inch. No, let's go 3/8, 0.375. Too many decimal points. And again, I'm going to raster cut this with the profile pass being last. Let's calculate that out and preview that cut. So Rodney even comes back and says, you know, the finished cut was 7 hours and everything. And yeah, I could imagine. Probably so. Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, Chris, let me know about that rest machining. All right, so I've got kind of this little frame area, and see, all I've done now, all this is going to be pocketed out even more where this frame area is for that text on text and everything, but I'm just kind of I'm giving myself a little bit of an 1/8 of an inch height here that's going to be over the top of my text that's going to get carved in here. All right, cool. All right, now I'm going to be carving all of this material away. So right now I'm ignoring the Stronger Together, the Infinity Heart in April 1945. Those are going to be V-carved at the very bottom of my pocket. So I don't need to protect them in any way or do anything with them because they're going to be V-carved in the bottom of the pocket. If they were going to be raised as well, you know, and we'll look at it both ways, then I'll need to create a boundary to kind of protect them from the pocketing that's going to happen from the you and me. Okay, now let's get up here and create some layers. Okay, so this is going to be my original design. So layer 1 here, I'm going to call this my original. It would help if I were actually typing original design. Sorry about that, guys and girls. I don't know why my throat is so. Probably because, like people say in my comments, I talk too much. Layer 0 is nothing, so I'm going to delete that. And layer 1 here is actually this layer right here, this Infinity Heart. So I'm actually going to move that over to the original design layer. That way I can kind of clean up these layers a bit. All right, so aside from my layer, because I am going to do this as a text on text a little bit, give me a text on text, I am going to create my top text vectors. Okay, I'm going to create another layer that's going to be my bottom text vectors. And the last layer I'm going to create is my welded text vectors. Now, this, if you guys and girls watched my class a couple weeks back, a few weeks back, now text on text 3 methods, I had option 1, 2, and 3. 1 was where we would offset the back text a little bit to get our V cut. Option 2 was where we offset our front text, and then option 3 was a 3D model of a text on text. This is option 2 that I'm doing here, so it has a welded text layer, unlike option 1 that doesn't. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select this border here, and I'm going to select the top text here, and I'm going to copy that over to my top text vectors. Cool. All right, I'm also going to take my back text here, no border, and copy that to my bottom text vectors or layer. Now, again, these guys here, I'm just going to put them on their own layer. Has nothing to do with the text on text. I'm going to put them on their own layer, V-Carve vectors or whatever. So let's just create that layer, and we'll call it our V-Carve text vectors. And I'm going to not copy, yeah, I'm going to copy them to that layer. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm copying and everything is because I want my original design here, my original design, I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer. Okay. That means I can't select it. It's protected. Okay. I don't want to, you know, change it or anything. I want to keep kind of my original intact, right? And I can unlock it as I need to use it. I did use the original design layer for creating my pocket cut and my pocket on my inner frame. So that's where those vectors were. All right, let's go ahead and lock that up for a minute. Okay, let's turn that layer off and let's go to our top text. Now on our top text here, there's no loops, there's no overlaps, there's nothing I've got to do here. So I'm done with it as far as any cleanup that needs to be done. So I can go ahead and just copy that over to the welded text layer. Get it over there. Okay. My border here, I'm also going to copy that over to the welded text layer as well. Cool. All right. Let's turn that layer off. Let's jump over to the welded text layer. Okay, so I should have a border in my top text here. Before I bring the bottom text over, the word you, I want to do my little bit of offsetting here. Now, I'm going to be using a 60-degree 0.25 V-bit. Okay. And my letter heights and everything, I'm going to go with eighth inch and eighth inch, which is going to be a total pocket of 1/4. But my actual pocket is going to be 3/8 because remember, I already milled off 1/8 of an inch of that, right? Don't want to confuse you. We'll get into that in a minute when it comes to the toolpathing. Let's see here. Let me make sure that I'm not missing any questions. Save early and save often. Thank you, Camara. Let's do that, guys. I'm a bad habit. I'm a bad teacher. Save early, save often. I preach that in my orientation trainings and things like that, but I forget to do it when I'm talking with you guys and girls. Let's go ahead and save right now. So we're going to save this, and I'm going to create a new folder here, and I'm just going to call this Me and You, right? Me and You. And we'll give it the same name. Me and You. All right. Thanks, Steven. Appreciate that. Okay. So in this layer, for you guys and girls who have not followed my videos and aren't sure about text on text and everything, what we want to do is, I know that my letters are going to be an 1/8 inch and an 1/8 inch. 1/8 inch for the top text, 1/8 inch for the bottom text. So I need to create an offset based on the bit that I'm using, the angle of the V-bit I'm using, and that height of the letters. Let's draw this out, this scenario out. I'm going to draw a 60-degree V-bit. Right there. Spacebar, and I'm going to draw a line right at the tip of the bit, 90 degrees across. This is a visual representation of my bit sitting on top of my board. Okay? Now, my letters, even though my pocket is down, right? I pocketed out. You got to ignore that pocket, that 1/8 inch that we took away. You ignore it visually as far as what I'm doing here, but we don't ignore it when we create the toolpath. But my texts are going to be an 1/8 inch tall, right? So I'm going to move this line up, move it up relative to its current position on the y-axis, 0.125. Now, when I do that, that's going to give me an offset distance from the tip of my bit to where that bit's going to be cutting down 1/8 of an inch, right? It's going to give me that offset angle. And I need to find out what that angle is. Now, from doing this all the time, it's 0.0722. I know that, but let's measure it so you know how to do it. We're going to measure horizontally from the tip of the bit to this intersection here. And we're going to, and let's go 4 decimal points so you can see 0.0722, right? So that's our offset. And for a 60-degree V-bit, 1/8 inch tall letters, it's always 0.0722, right? It's going to vary depending on your bit. Draw that bit out, move your line up how tall you want your words to be. Your top and your bottom, not combined, right? It's just how tall are my words going to be, and they're going to be an 1/8 of an inch tall. So 0.0722 is my offset. That's my magic number, right? So let's move that magic number off the screen here. And what I want to do is my and me. I want to offset that outward by that 0.0722. Okay, 0.0722. I do not want sharp corners. I do want to delete the original, and make sure that you are working in the welded text layer. Make sure that layer is active. You'll know a layer is active, 1, because you'll be able to visually see it up here, but number 2, it'll be bold and black, right? So let's select that, and I want to, I don't want sharp corners. I want to delete the original, and I want to go ahead and offset that. Okay, now it may look funky, right? It may look funky, like, and sometimes it could look even more funky and distorted and stuff. Don't worry, it'll come out looking all right. But where we're offsetting that, we're creating that boundary around that word. All right, now my border here needs to be offset inward by the 0.0722. So we're going to offset that inward by the same. Again, no sharp corners. I do want to delete the original. I almost said do not. I did say do not. I do want to delete the original and offset that inward, that 0.0722. Okay? Done. Right? Finished. That's all we had to do. Now I can come in in my bottom text, I had no cleanup, no overlaps, nothing that I need to do to change that. And, you know, it's ready to go. So I can go ahead and copy that over to that welded text layer. Right? Cool. All right. Let's go back to that welded text layer. And now I have my me and you here. Now, currently right now, you is a font. It's still text. And me are vectors, right? Multiple vectors. So I need to kind of turn you into vectors as well and group it together. And I also need to group and me together as well. So let's do and me first. I'm going to go over to the group tool and group that. That way the software treats it like one object. Okay. The word you, I need to convert that to a curved object, a vector object. Okay, that'll break it up into individual vectors and then group it as well. So now I have two objects that I'm going to weld together. Okay, I have two objects. The software is looking at it as two objects I'm going to weld together. So I will select that me and you, and I will weld that together. That's going to create my outline for my lower text area and stuff. This creates the boundary that we're going to be milling around. All right, cool. Okay, one last thing that I need on this layer, right? Has anybody called it out and said, hey, you're missing a vector? Let's see here. Bear with me a second. Last question about subfolders. Okay, Mike, give me a second. We'll get to your question. I don't see anyone call it out or anything. I don't see anyone miss that. But I need, from my original design, I need this outside vector right here. I got to unlock that layer so I can grab it. I need this outside vector right here. I need that copied not only to my top text vector layer, but I also need it copied to my welded text layer. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and relock that back and turn that off. Okay. I need that boundary because I'm about to pocket all this material out, but I don't want to pocket out the area where my frame is, right? So I need that vector in there to protect that area where my frame's going to be. All right, let's pause just for a second here. We'll hit save. This will be a good time to hit save. And let's answer a couple of questions. Mike says, last week question about subfolders in the clip art folder. You tried it, but it did not work. Okay, when did it did not work? What if I go to edit options, general settings, go to show the clip art subfolder and choose yes. I think what you were talking about, Mike, is in my clip art here, my folders where I had add folder. Someone asked about, you know, can I add a folder or whatever? And it didn't work, but let me see, because all of the subfolders are here, you know, like my custom images and everything, you know. So let me see what you're referring to. Edit options, general settings. Where's my general settings? Right here. And go to show the clip art subfolders and choose yes. Show the clip art subfolder contents. I have that set to yes already, Mike. So if you don't, by default, it's generally yes. It already says yes. This area right here, it already says yes. So that would be that. Those are kind of the settings. Unfortunately, I know the area when you were talking about, when we were creating that subfolder for those custom images and stuff for those frames. There was something that I was trying to do in here with the add folder. Let's click OK on that. With the add folder, and it didn't work. But I don't remember exactly what it was. Oh, I remember. the question was, can we add folders inside of this window, right? Can we break up those subcategories of, my heart vectors versus my tiger vectors, or whatever the case may be, that we actually could break it up even to more subcategories? That's what it was, Mike. And we couldn't show. Now I have that setting, that option setting, set to yes already, to show the clip art subfolder contents here. And if I go in, let's go into the File Explorer real quick. And let's take a vector with me. I'm going to grab this infinity heart and copy that. Copy that. And let's go to this PC, C drive, users, public documents, Vectric files, and go into clip art. And in that custom images, let's create a subfolder. And we'll call this hearts, just for kicks and giggles. And in there, let's go ahead and drop in that DXF file. Okay, and that DXF might not show up. So to give ourselves the best option possible, let's go ahead and let's do this. Create a new file. 6 by 6. Click OK. Paste. I gotta copy it again. Give me a second. Bear with me, guys and girls. I'm gonna grab this vector right here. Copy that. Copy, not copy the layer. Copy that. And let's go over here. Paste. Let's F9 to get it centered on the board. Let's size it up. File, save as. We're going to go to the C drive, users, public documents, Vectric files, clip art, custom images, hearts, and let's go ahead and we'll call this infinity heart. Save. Let that save. All right, cool. Now, in this project here, if I refresh my clip art and go back to custom images, okay, the infinity heart is here, right? Mike, it's here, right there, but it's not in its folder. So it's showing the subfolder contents, but it's not showing the folders. And the question the gentleman asked was, can we break it up into folders and have those folders kind of separated, within that custom images folder? And the folder doesn't show. It's not going to show the folder where I click on that folder to open it and all. It's just going to show what's in that folder, right? Automatically in the window. So here's that infinity heart, right? Okay. So it doesn't show the actual folder, but it shows the contents of that subfolder. All right, cool. All right, let's get back to this here. Let's turn off that original design. We were in here, and let's, hey, Big Daddy Fish, welcome. Thanks for popping in. What does the grouping matter? So Suicide asks, what does the grouping matter when we're welding and stuff? So let's take a step back, a couple of steps back. Okay. And if I ungroup these things, okay, if I ungroup these, if I try to weld them together, all right, come into my weld tool and weld. it's getting rid of everything in the middle. It's only keeping the outline. So the center of my U is gone and everything. So it's only keeping the stuff that is on the outer boundaries and getting rid of everything in the middle, the, you know, inside of my and sign and all that stuff. Okay, so let's undo that. Let's go back and group U together. Turn this off. This and this and this. Okay, let's group that together. And then and me, let's group that together. And now when we weld those two objects, you can see that it keeps the inside of the E here, the inside of the O, and all those inner vectors and stuff. That's why grouping those two separate objects is important. Okay, cool. All right, let's go back now because I was doing undo, undo, undo. I need to go back to my original design. Okay, let me unlock it. And I need this border right here. Once again, I need to copy that to my top text layer, and I also need to copy it to my welded text layer. Okay, and let's lock that back. Okay, I need that boundary on these two layers because that's what these two layers, the top text and the welded text, is what I'm creating the toolpaths on, my toolpaths. And so I need that boundary to protect so that wood doesn't get milled away when I'm doing this pocket and everything. All right, cool. All right, let's go into our welded text layer. And we've got our borders. We've got our welded text here. We've got our boundary. Everything was offset and all that stuff. So we're good to go. Let's go ahead now and let's create the toolpath. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got my two pocket toolpaths, right? That was doing the frame, right? That took out that 1/8 inch of material and it did the inside of the frame. Now I'm going to select my vectors here. Actually, I'm not going to select them. I'm going to associate them with the toolpath. So we're going to create, first of all, I'm going to turn on my, let's get rid of this. I don't need that anymore. And actually, let's do that a different way. I'm going to move it to the dimension layer and just hide it. All right, I want my welded text layer on, and I want my top text layer on, and I want my V-Carve text layer on. Okay, I want all three of those light bulbs on those because I'm going to associate a toolpath with those individual layers. V-Carve toolpath. My start depth is going to be 0.125. Remember, I've already cut down, I've already pocketed out that first 1/8 of an inch, right? So I'm going to start at an 1/8 of an inch, and from there I'm going to cut another 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I'm going to use my 60-degree V-bit, and I could use an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch end mill. I could use multiple end mills, you know, for what I want to do for the flat area and stuff. And let's do that so you can see how that works. I'm going to go ahead and select a 1/4 inch end mill and an 1/8. And notice how it puts the 1/4 in the list at the top, right? Because it's putting it in the order that they're going to run. You know, 1/4 inch would be first, then your 1/8 inch and stuff. So what this means is on this pocket area, the 1/4 inch is going to go do all of its pocketing where it can fit, and where it can't, the 1/8 inch bit is going to come take over and do all of that where you know where that 1/4 inch could fit, and where it can't fit, the V bit will come, that 60-degree V bit will come and do the final takeover, right? So that's what it means. I'm going to have 3 toolpaths just to do that one section for my top layer. Okay, so I'm starting at an 1/8 and cutting an 1/8. All right, let's go ahead and I'll just call this top with a little underscore because I'm going to be renaming them individually in a minute, and I'll calculate that toolpath. But I can't calculate it because I don't know what vectors to choose, right? Well, I do know, but I'm not going to choose them. I'm going to let the toolpath choose them. I'm going to hit selector, and I want to select all open and closed vectors, and I want to associate, check off associate with toolpath, everything that's on the top text vector layer. So if we look, it's went through and selected everything that was on that top text vector layer, right? Cool. Close that. Now it's an automatic selection because it's associated with that toolpath. So we'll calculate that. All right, let's go ahead and preview that visible toolpath. I have 3 toolpaths now. I got a 1/4 inch end mill that's going to go through and do the 1/4 inch work. Where it couldn't quite fit in certain places, my 1/8 inch bit is going to come in and do the 1/8 inch area, kind of get in there. And then my V-bit's going to come back and do the V-Carve area, right? Those edges. Cool? Cool. Okay, so this is what my area looks like so far. Okay. Nice. And I got the damned hiccups. I don't know why. Excuse me, guys and girls. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss, but whew, they're killing me. Okay. Now I need to create another toolpath, V-Carve toolpath. This one is going to, I've already cut down, remember, my 1/8 for my pocket and my 1/8 of an inch for my top letters. That's a 1/4, so I'm going to start at a 1/4 of an inch and cut down another 1/8 because my bottom text is going to be an 1/8 inch tall as well. So I'm starting at a 1/4 and I'm cutting down another 1/8 of an inch from there. Okay. All right, same tools. I'm still going to use the same 60-degree V-bit, 1/4 inch end mill, and 1/8 inch end mill. And I'll call this my bottom. And we'll calculate that. Okay, so let's preview that visible toolpath. So again, my 1/4 inch bit will come in and do the 1/4 inch work, 1/8 inch, then my V-bit. While that is calculating and showing out, let's see here. Mike says, don't forget to lock your original layer. I believe I did, but I'm still in there. I got to make it the active layer. Now, watch what happened here. I'm an idiot, right? I'm an idiot. I wasn't paying attention. On my bottom layer here, it's still manual, right? There was no real vector selected, but those top ones. I need to go in here and select, associate with the toolpath, and turn off that top, and I want the welded text layer to be associated with it, right? You see how that visual right there? It's a good thing for that visual. It'll show me where I screwed up. Let's reset that preview, and let's get back to our 2 pockets and our V-Carve here. Let's preview that visible toolpath. Let's get back to where we were because I made a boo-boo. I forgot to associate the bottom layer vectors with that bottom toolpath. I just calculated because I was paying attention to what Mike was letting me know. He's like, don't forget to lock your original layer, and he's right. I believe it is locked, but I'll double check on that. And let's see here. Suicide All Time said, oh, here's one. Is there a G code to trace the frame of a project that IO can make a macro? Using the laser, I can use a top, bottom, left, right, but it is accessing a variable in the program. So basically, you're talking about if I load a project up on the machine, can I run kind of a trace program where it'll kind of frame the area that it's going to carve, you know, so I can make sure it's laying on my position, you know, it's positioned on my material correctly. It's kind of a framing toolpath. Is that what you're referring to, where it kind of frames out the area that's going to carve? Let me know, because to answer that question, some controller softwares have that framing option, but the Planet CNC that we use with the digital wood carver doesn't. Now let's real quick, Mike was pointing out, yeah, it is locked, but I didn't have the layer, you know, it was red because it's not turned on. So it is locked. Thanks, Mike, for pointing that out to me, but it is locked. Okay, let's go back to this bottom toolpath and fix my mistake. The vector selection was set to manual, right? So notice I still have my top vector selected because from the last toolpath. So when I calculated that, it started carving the top again. I need to go into my selector here and associate them with a toolpath, turn off that top text vectors and turn on the welded text vectors. So that way it selects those vectors for that welded text. Okay. And we're going to click yes on that to close, and it'll be automatic here, and we're going to recalculate that. So that was my screw up a minute ago. All right, so let's preview that visible toolpath. And again, we're going to be 1/4 inch end mill pocketing, then the 1/8, then the V-bit. Yes, framing the toolpath, but is there a G code that does it? All right, so basically you can, let me think of the best way to do this. You can create a vector boundary around your project, you know, your whole project, Suicidal Times. You can create a vector boundary around there and create like a profile toolpath with like a 0 cut depth. But what you're going to want to do is when you're at your machine, you don't want to zero out the Z. You want to zero the Z a little high, right? So it's above the material, so that you can run that profile toolpath, you know, above the material. It'll do just kind of one pass, and it'll frame. It'll kind of be like framing out that outline, and that would be a G code. Then once that framing was done, then you would zero out your Z. You know, once that, you know, that framing was done and you got your board, okay, that's perfect. It's right there where I want it to be. Then you would re-zero out your Z. Okay. And then from there, you would run your normal toolpath, your other toolpath. That would be the only way to frame it out as a G code. Some software takes a G code that comes in, and in the controller program, it has the state of the program, right? It shows the program's the maximum distance in all 4 directions that the router bit has to travel in all 4 directions based on that design, right, that comes in. Now, I can create a script using the state where it reads those state parameters, the state of my project parameters, where it will actually, if I run that script, it can run those 4 parameters, you know, and I can look at my outline, and that's another way of framing it. But I have to physically write the script. The script is not like a G code. It's a little bit of G code mixed in, but there's also other parameters and stuff in the Planet CNC TNG. So I could do it that way. I could create a script that no matter what project I bring in, when I run that script, I can put a button in the software. When I run that button, it's going to look at the state of that program, and it's going to run the parameters of it, right? I can do that. Or I can create that profile cut based on that design with a 0 cut depth, zero out my X and Y, run that G code, see where it's going to be, you know, make sure I'm laid out right. Once I am, zero out the Z and run my regular toolpaths. That'd be the only 2 ways that I could think of it if the software doesn't have a built-in frame feature, right? Okay. Hey, Crystal. Let's see here. Lainey, why do we lock the layers? Oh, Sylvia, why do we lock the layers? Okay, so locking a layer is basically protecting it. All right, so if I turn that layer on and I turn off my other layers for a minute, with it being locked, I can't change anything. It's my template. It's my original design. It's my template. Now, let's say that I keep this exactly the same, but the only thing that's going to change is the date, right? I could have a layer. Let me unlock this for a minute. I could have, you know, a layer where I could put this date. I could move it to a new layer called, you know, established date, right? You know, EST date. And so on my design, you know, when I lock that original design, I can't change my template. It stays the same, but my date is going to vary from couple to couple to couple. So I can go in there and I can change that date, but but I can't screw up my template because I can't select it because it's locked. That's why we locked it. We're just protecting it. If I have a wedding sign, or if I have a sign that's really popular, but there, you know, it might be the people's names, or it could be something like the date, then that's going to be on a separate layer, and that's the layer that I can work with, and I can make alterations and changes and stuff. But my original template is locked and protected, so it doesn't change, right? That's why we would lock that. Okay. All right. Let me put this back on the original layer here and turn that off, and let's get back to top, welded, and V-Carve text. Now I want to look at the 3D cut here, and I want to show you something. Okay. Let's zoom in here a little bit. Okay. I want you to notice my frame. My frame has this straight edge and then this V-cut angle down to that quarter. You can see, by the way, let's look at the whole design so far. So that's the you and me text on text, right? Okay. But my frame here basically has this straight edge where the V-cut actually started here at the same level, right? And then as it went down that 1/8 of an inch and that 1/8 of an inch, it was cutting, you know, outward from there. But the outside of the bit, you know, came in and created this kind of straight edge. You know, it's cutting on the outside. And there was no offset for that, right? So even though the software doesn't warn me, that's a bit of a collision. Okay. My cutter is coming down, and let's go into a solid view here for a minute, and let's look at even the top V-cut. Okay. My pocket cut is doing all the main pocketing area, but the V-bit is coming down and doing that V-carve. And so let's take a look. Let's kind of go actually into the 3D view once again, and let's watch these cuts as they happen. And then we'll get into wrapping this up, because that is a bit of a collision right there. If we look at it down the side, the bit is coming down, okay, and my shaft is rubbing up against this cutter here, and it's fine and everything, but you know, I don't know, it's not what I want, right? If anything, I mean, it doesn't look bad and all, but if anything, I'd want to kind of have that V cut start all the way up at the top and everything. And in order to do that, I would have to mill off this top pocket, which I didn't. But let's look at the actual cuts, and let's make sure that I am correct here. So my pocket cuts are, you know, removing that 1/8 of an inch material. So let's actually preview that. Let's reset this preview. And my pocket cuts, preview the visible toolpath. When we get to the this top cut, I'm going to slow it down so we can see that top cut. But this is my end mill, making that 1/8 of an inch clearing, right? It's clearing out that top 1/8 of an inch. And then it's coming in and doing that 3/8 of an inch pocket inside. Okay. All right, guys and girls. I thought I have been searching for an answer that the frame forever, so I would need a script and somehow add it to the program. Now, suicide at all times. Are you running Planet CNC TNG? If you are, if you're running Planet CNC TNG, what I'll do is I'll write a script for that. And if you will email me at laney.shaughnessy, and I'll put it in the, I'll type my email address down in the comments. Laney.shaughnessy@spindletv.com. If you email me, I will. If you're using Planet CNC TNG, then I'll give you a script for that. If not, I don't know what your program's scripting parameters are and all. I wouldn't be able to do that. You're running Candle. Okay. All right. I do not know anything about Candle, so unfortunately I can't offer you any help on that. But I will write a script in the Planet CNC TNG to show, and we can demonstrate that maybe next week or something. Can show that. All right. So this pocket finished, you know, right? So there's my 1/8 inch pocket. Let's zoom out a little bit, and I want to kind of get right here at this angle. Now I'm going to be running the second pocket, which is that 1/4 inch end mill, 1/8 inch end mill in the V bit. All right. And I'm going to kind of slow this one down a bit. Well, we'll hold off on the V-bit. We'll do the 2 pockets first. Let's preview the visible toolpath. And so you see how it stepped away, right? So far, there's a lip right there that it stepped away, and it's creating those steps. So it's not going to be a collision because my V-bit's going to come right down the side there and cut that lip away at that angle. Okay? And now that I've seen that, let's speed this up. Get through the rest of it. And then we're going to look at the bottom cuts as well before we do the 2 V-bits. And the bottom cut should step it out even more. There should be a 3rd step there when the bottom cut comes in. Planet CNC TNG, it comes with the program and the control board, and you would add the control board to your CNC, and you could operate with Planet CNC software. It's a software hardware combination. It's not just a software use. All right, so if I run the bottom again pockets, that 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch end mill, I should create a 3rd step. So the no, it's not a 3rd step. It is only creating here. Okay, that my total offset is that 0.014. So that's the total offset, that step there. Now we're going to slow it down, and I'm going to draw the tool. Let's slow it down a lot. And let's look at the 2 V-bits. Let's do the top one first. Preview the visible toolpath. And so let that come around. Oh, I wish I could pause. I wish I could pause. Yeah, see, it created that and my cutter doesn't have, that's a collision. My cutter does not have, that V-bit comes here. It doesn't have the straight up, you know, it's not like a 60-degree half-inch head that has the V-bit, then the 2 cutters that come up, you know, the side and then down to a V. This is just a V and then shank. So right here, that little straight lip, let's stop that for a second. Right here, that straight lip, that is my shank. And so that's going to, my bit, you know, when it started cutting that angle and everything, that was the shank rubbing there. And there's no cutter there. So that would be a collision. It would be burning through that and everything. Can't have that. Don't want that. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to create and oh, I kind of stumped myself on this one. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to create an offset inward. I'm going to have to create an offset inward for this vector by 0.0722 to create that ramp all the way down. So this vector on, we'll do one layer at a time. This vector here on the welded text layer, this vector, let's turn that welded text layer on. This vector right here, just like I offset this vector inward, I'm going to need to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to need to do the same thing with this one. Just because I pocketed out that first 1/8 of an inch. So let's offset that inward. 0.0722. Delete that original, not the original, but the one on this layer, and replace it with that offset. And now I should be I'm starting at an 1/8, cutting down an 1/8. So I should be fine there. Let's recalculate. This is the great thing about associating toolpaths with a layer. All I have to do is hit recalculate and it'll reassociate those toolpaths. Except for the pocket one right here for some reason. Come on now, work with me. Sorry. It recalculated all the toolpaths except for the 2 pockets. I got to do them separately. Dang, because I didn't associate. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get our screw up cleaned up here. Let's turn off the welded text. Turn on the original layer. Unlock it. All right. This first pocket was the outside here. Let's recalculate that. I gotta actually manually recalculate that. Okay, good. Close it. This inner pocket here, that's this inner vector, and that was it for that one. Recalculate that. Okay, great. All right, let's blank that out. Okay, now make sure my top text layer is turned on and my welded text layer is turned on. And recalculate those. Perfect. All right. The reason why I got the error was the light bulb was turned off. That layer had to be visible, right? Because it's being associated to a toolpath. All right, let's preview this. Our pockets. Just going to preview all of the pockets. Preview the visible toolpath. Oh, let's turn the speed up. Lord of mercy. And let's turn off that drawing tool. Let's make that faster. All right, while that's going on, let's look here. Recut the vector with a regular end mill last. Yeah, Tom, I could do that. I could recut the vector with a regular end mill. I could kind of pocket it down and everything. Or I could just do a V-bit with an 1/8 inch cut depth on as a profile cut to create that rest of that angle, right? An offset. But I would run that first. That would be the first toolpath to create that angle. I think that's what I'm going to end up having to do. I don't know if this is going to work the way I'm hoping it will, but I'll find out in just 2 seconds here if it will by offsetting that one vector in by that 0.0722. We'll find out here in just a minute. So by offsetting it inward, we've just milled away that step. You saw that on that bottom layer, that bottom level. Okay. All right, so it milled away that step because we offset that in by that 0.0722, so it milled it away. Now there's not going to be any angle cuts. So if I go with the V bit here, again, let's animate this, slow it down a bit, and preview that visible toolpath. We should not see a line at the top, and I do still see that line. Okay, so let's stop that. And let's look at that. And I'm still getting that vertical. So we're going to fix it right now. I've got the answer, ladies and gentlemen. I've got the answer. All right. I've got the answer. So first thing that we're going to do is let's go back into our layers here. Well, I knew it was going to be a screw up somewhere on in this for you guys and girls. I apologize, but let's go back in our welded text layer, and I'm going to delete this vector. I'm going to go back into my original layer here and copy this original back into that welded text layer. Okay, let's lock that back and close it out. Okay, on my welded text layer here, this is the original here. I can't, the first toolpath that I run needs to be a V-cut toolpath on this that's clearing away a bit of the angle. So I'm not going to associate this pocket toolpath that I'm about, or this profile toolpath that I'm about to do, but I'm going to make sure it's up at the top of the list. So I'm going to do a profile cut. It's going to cut down to 1/8 of an inch. Okay. It's going to cut down to 1/8 of an inch. It's going to be using the 60-degree V-bit, and it's going to be on the outside of the line, but I'm going to use an offset allowance, and I'm going to have it cut in that 0.0722. So it's going to go over the line by 0.0722. All right. And I'm going to calculate this toolpath. And this is going to be my inner frame, V clearing, I'm going to call it. Calculate. Okay. So what should happen is this toolpath, it's going to be up higher in the list. It'll be up. We'll get it in position in a minute. But what this toolpath should do is it should come and create that clean edge that you see there. Okay. All right. So it's going to create that clean edge for that, basically that continuous chamfer. All right. So here's what it's going to look like now. So let's put our toolpaths in order. There's still one more toolpath we haven't created, but let's go ahead and organize these. My two pockets use a 1/4 inch end mill. They're going to be first. Then on my top clearing, there's a 1/4 inch end mill there, and then there's an 1/8 inch end mill. My bottom clearing is a 1/4 inch end mill. Let's move that up with the other quarters. Okay, so here's all my 1/4 inch end mills up to that bottom. My top clear and my bottom clear will be next in the list. Okay. Then I'm going to have the inner frame V clearing that I just created, and then my top and bottom V bit, and those three will be associated. So let's run these like it would be on the machine. My 1/4 inch end mill would be put into my machine first. Okay. And I'm going to run that 1/4 inch end mill. This is going to be all the 1/4 inch work. Preview that visible toolpath. Let's turn that toolpath up, and we can turn off the drawing tool and clear that out. All right. So I had to create a clearing, a V-cut from the 0, the top of my board, down 1/8 of an inch with that offset end to create that, so that angle continues. So that offset angle continues. So I'm cutting that bit on the outside of the board, but I had to step it over into the line by my offset, 0.0722. And we'll tilt this board so you can see these next couple of cuts. All right, so this is all my 1/4 inch work right now, doing all the 1/4 inch work first. No, that's incorrect. Suicide all times. You can run Gerbil toolpaths in the Planet CNC. I believe it's Raspberry Pi version runs Gerbil. Take a look at it, planet-cnc.com, and do some research on it. All right, so my 1/4 inch end mill does all of its 1/4 inch work, right? Then my 1/8 inch end mill is going to come in and do all of its work. I'll change to the 1/8 inch bit, and it's going to come in and do all of its work. All right, now let's zoom into this, get close to this edge right here. My next tool paths are going to be the V bit, and these are going to be running as one file, but they're going to run in this order: the inner frame V clearing, then the top, then the bottom. So let's show them in that order. The inner frame V clearing, when I run that, preview the visible toolpath, it's going to create that top chamfer. Okay. All right, cool. And then my top text V-Carve will be followed right behind that, and it's going to create that next angle. And then my bottom V-cut preview visible toolpath will create that next angle. Now there's still a pocket missing. I'm missing my lip right here. So you see what happened here? I'm working on an offset. I screwed up my vectors somewhere, and let's find them. What is my mess up here? Top text, welded text, V-Carve text. All right, this. Okay, so that's that. Welded text and V-Carve text. That's all the same. Let's go through and recalculate all those toolpaths. Okay. Okay, let's look at that again. I'll get it. We'll get it here, guys. We're gonna wrap this up. All right, all my 1/4 inch end mill. That's the lip that I was looking for. That pocket right there. That's the lip that I was looking for. Okay, that looks good. All right, let's reset the preview and preview those visible toolpaths. I think I didn't recalculate the toolpaths a moment ago. Sorry, guys. When I created that pocket, I didn't recalculate all the other toolpaths. Okay, so let's see here. But at least I have an avenue to look by adding to another program, the G code or macro. So awesome. So awesome, Sylvia. My screw-ups are awesome. Thanks, honey. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, there's that lip I was looking for. That's what I was looking for. Let's make sure it don't get milled away by these next couple of toolpaths. I didn't recalculate the toolpaths. Okay, so now my 1/4 inch bit's coming in. There we go. All right, so that's doing the bottom layer for that 1/4 inch. And I'll zoom out in a minute, but I'm kind of focusing on this frame right here, okay? So that's all my 1/4 inch work. Then my 1/8 inch work, okay? My 1/8 inch bit is going to come in and do its 1/8 inch work where it needs to. So we'll preview that visible toolpath, and that's mostly going to be around the little corners in there and the letters. Okay, so that's that. Now that inner frame clearing should be ramping this top angle here. Preview that visible toolpath. There's that chamfer, that clearing that I needed right? So we can see that. That's that clearing I needed. And then my other V-bit should come in and we can do the top and the bottom, preview the visible toolpath, and it should continue that ramp down all the way around, just like that. Okay. Now, what is that cut right there? That cut right there, the bottom V cut is, it took everything away. What is that bottom V-Carve doing? It's screwing up the whole plan. Let me think. That's my welded layers, the bottom. And that's the one that's screwing me up. Let me think what I got to do here. It's cutting back into this. It needs to be offset outward, like my my top text. It needs to be offset. This guy's got to be offset outward by the 0.0722 on the welded text layer. Laney, get with it, man. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this kind of screwed us up. Outward, offset, delete the original on that layer. Boom. Okay. Okay. Come in here and recalculate all of the tool paths. Okay, one or more errors occurred recalculating toolpaths. Please check the data of the following toolpath carefully. Top one clear inner frame vector. Okay, that's because I deleted it. I'm an idiot. Hold on a second. Undo. Edit. Undo. All right, when I create that offset, that needs to be, this original here needs to be, or this toolpath, this inner frame vector does not need to be created on that welded text layer. When I calculated that toolpath, I selected the vector on that welded text layer. I need to select it from my original. Sorry, guys and girls. Or even the top. The top layer is fine. I can use the top because it's not getting offset. So let's turn off all those funky toolpaths so y'all can see what's going on here. On my, I'm going to redo that offset vector. Okay. Let me see here. Oh, hell, I done confused y'all all. Let's make sure. Redo offset vector. There we go. That is on the welded text layer. What I need to do is I need to associate this toolpath, that clearing one, the V clearing, with my top text vector. Not the layer, the vector. The inner one. That's the one that's my original. That's my original. So here's where I screwed up. My original clearing, that clearing that's taken that 1/8 of an inch off, that's fine. My top text is continuing on with that from that 1/8 of an inch to create that ramp. My bottom text needs to be stepped out or offset out 0.0722 because it's got to continue the rest of that V down. So on that, everything is going to be fine because now when I recalculate all of these tool paths, which one's the one screwing up still? Inner vector frame clearing. Why is that one still screwing up? Oh, it would help if I recalculated it. Okay. I didn't recalculate it properly. All right, let's go through and let's look at this one last time, and then we're going to hopefully have a successful carving because we still got one more toolpath to create. Sorry, guys and girls. One of these things where you just don't, you're not thinking. I'm not thinking tonight. End mill. All of my end mill cuts. Let's preview that one more time. I need to create the initial clearing on the original vector of that outside of that square frame. Okay? From 0 to 1/8 of an inch, I'm doing a profile cut, offsetting it inward 1/8 of an inch to create that little chamfer. That brings that material back so my bit can come down and do that next step without the shank colliding. Okay, it can do that next step outward. And then my bottom layer needs to go even further outward and everything. So I had to offset that bottom layer rectangle outward by my 0.0722. And you'll see it here right now. You see there's my third step. Remember I was saying earlier, like an hour ago, that it's going to do a third step, and then when it didn't, I was like, oh, no, it's not doing a third step. Why? You know, I knew that there were supposed to be 3 steps there because it's 3/8 of an inch passes, but I didn't have that clearing vector created, and I didn't have the proper offset on that bottom, that welded text layer. Now, this should cut exactly like it's supposed to. My inner frame vector is going to do the chamfer on, let's zoom into this corner. It's going to do the chamfer on that top edge. Okay, exactly like it's supposed to. My top layer V-Carve is going to do the continuation, the next step down. Okay, and my bottom frame layer is going to do, it would help if I made it visible, is going to do that final V-cut. So I have that continuous ramp. Okay, we'll go back and I'll clarify it at the very end, but that is exactly what it should look like, and that's exactly what it should be. Okay, now in this lower area here, I have one more toolpath to calculate. Okay, these vectors here. All right, and so I'm going to calculate a V-Carve toolpath. No flat depth at all. I'm starting down at 1/4 of an inch, the bottom of my pocket, and no flat depth. I'm just letting it carve out to a normal V-carve and everything. I'm using my 60-degree V-bit, and I'll go ahead and associate these with the layer since, you know, I've already got those vectors on their own layer. So you see how it's just those selected, and this will be my V-carve text. So we'll go back and look at all these vectors very carefully so you'll see what needs to be done. I'm going to continue this. There's an overlap in my design, but it's okay. And then so we will V-carve this. Oh, it's 3/8, not 1/4. Starting at 3/8. That's my pocket depth is 3/8, 0.375. 375. Calculate. All right. Okay. So that will be my sign with my little frame and everything in there. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at these one layer at a time so you can see what is what. On my original design, let's turn off everything. On my original design, that's my original design. I've got my outside border. I've got my 2 little frame borders for where that picture is going to go. I've got my you and me stronger together with my infinity heart 1945, April 1945. That's my original design. Done. On my top vectors layer is the top text, that and me, a border, and the original outside frame. This is the outside of that original frame. It's that outside vector right there. Okay? Done. The bottom text, nothing but the bottom text, which is the word you. That's it. Nothing on that layer, except for that. The welded text is the combination of you and me welded together. You know, the and me was offset outward by 0.0722, my offset number. The border, that rectangular border, was also offset outward by 0.0722. and my outside actual perimeter border was offset inward by 0.0722. Okay? And then finally, my lower text that was just getting V-carved in. Okay, that's on its own layer. The dimensions layer was just, that little V with my offset. And then the established date is blank because that's where I was showing the example of why we lock layers. So let's delete that layer out. All right, so you got it now. My original vector for that outside frame, for this guy right here, a copy of it went on to the top text layer and the bottom text, or the welded text layer. And on the welded text layer, it had to get offset outward by 0.0722. Just like my and me got offset outward by 0.0722. And then my inner perimeter was offset inward by 0.0722. And the reason why we went inward and all that stuff, if we look at the actual cuts, and this will be the final conclusion here, the wrap up, when we look at the actual cuts, let's reset this one cut at a time. Let's get into a kind of a state like this. My first 1/4 inch pocket cut is clearing that 1/8 of an inch off the whole top surface. Okay. Troy Pritchard, offset the top layer. Your top layer text is outward and the border's inward. No, let's not call it layers. Your top text in the welded text layer, your top text gets offset outward and the main perimeter gets offset inward. Okay? If you had just a text on text sign, your top text would be offset outward and your border inward by that 0.0722. Okay? On the welded text layer. But we have an extra frame border there on the inside, that little frame. And it needs to be offset outward just like the top text. Okay? So this is my clearing pocket. It clears away that 1/8 of an inch. Followed by my inner pocket, which clears away the inside of my frame down to the 3/8 of an inch cut depth that I wanted. Okay? All right. Cool. And guys and girls, if you like my screw ups and like the way that we kind of recover from them all, give me a thumbs up. Smash that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. It helps out a lot. All right, so the inner pocket cleared away my inner pocket here. All right. Now, my top text clearing, okay, the 1/4 inch end mill that's doing the top text clearing and all, is going to be clearing away, that 1/4 inch end mill is going to be clearing away the top layer around the word and me, okay, that 1/8 of an inch depth and me, and it's going to create that step over there, okay, that boundary there. All right, cool. You see this boundary here because it's the end mill. The reason why it's stepped over is because the V-bit's got to do that V work. So the end mill's stepped over. I didn't have to offset anything or anything like that. The bit does that because the V-bit is going to do all the edge work. So it's staying away from my border and away from that frame by that offset distance based on the V-bit. Then from there, let's kind of get this fully in here. On that same top layer, from there with that same 1/4 inch end mill, my bottom layer is going to get cut. That welded text layer is going to get cut. And again, because the V-bit is doing all the edge work, it's creating that extra step over here, and you'll see it around the border as well when it gets around to the border. So because the V-bit is going to create that nice chamfer all the way down from the top, from 0 down to that 3/8 of an inch of cut. Okay, all the way around the border and around that frame. Okay, now I have an 1/8 inch bit that I chose to add to those tool paths, so it'll do a little bit of touch-up work. So the top layer 1/8 inch bit is going to just do the and me and the 8 corners. So if we preview that tool path, It's going to kind of clear around a little bit more around the and me, and kind of touch up in those corners, make those radiuses smaller. The bottom 1/8 inch bit, when I calculated the bottom toolpath, it's going to do just the around the YOU, okay, and again those 8 corners. All right, so it's just kind of cleaning that up. Then I have a inner framing clearing. This inner frame is what I called it. On the original outside border, I have a V cut doing a profile cut on the outside of the line, but there is an offset allowance, if we look at the toolpath, of negative 0.0722. I want it to cut inward, over the line inward, 0.0722. So if we look at this in the 2D view, in a solid state, it's cutting, if I didn't have that offset in here, right? Well, it would help if I change that to 0. If I didn't have that offset in there, it would be cutting on the outside of the line, right? But I want it to step over the line inward, so that's a negative number. It's an offset allowance of a negative number by the same offset that I'm offsetting all the other things, 0.0722. So that way when I calculate that, that V cutter cutting down that first 1/8 of an inch from 0, the top of my board, it's kind of cutting that ramp back, that chamfer back further. So when we look at that clearing toolpath, it's clearing that top chamfer, right? And now this clears away from my other bit to come down and continue that chamfer without any kind of collisions or anything like that. So my top cut V bit is doing all the edge work on the top layer around the border and everything. So if and the and me. So if we preview that visible toolpath, it's doing all the top chamfer and the and me. Now I've got a little bit of an issue here on the border, right? Look at my border cut. Okay, if I tilt this up, let me get right in here. Okay, you see that here and that straight dark, can you see that dark shading right there? That's the same problem we had with that inner rectangle. All right, it's a straight cut right here when that chamfer, is supposed to be happening, and it's a collision. I got to fix that. We'll come back and fix it in a second, and it's going to be an easy fix. It'll be an easy fix, trust me. Well, hell, let's do it now. Inner frame clearing. Remember that guy? Okay. We're going to change it around on that inner frame clearing toolpath. Let's turn on all the layers. Okay. All right, on the inner frame clearing toolpath, which is my original border, that's this guy right here. It was cutting on the outside and stepping over by that 0.022. I need to do the same thing with my original border. This original border here. So in my top layer, since I'm using that top layer, let's turn off the original, get rid of it. Since I'm using that top layer for this toolpath and everything, I might as well stick to that. I'm not going to associate this with the toolpath, but these two guys right here, this one, hold the shift key, and this one, let's turn off all the other layers so it makes sense. All right, so those two vectors, I need to cut on this one, the inside of the line. Now the software is super smart. I'm going to cut on the inside of the line, right? And I'm going to step over 0.0722. That means it's going to cut outward a little bit more, but it knows I have an inside vector here, so it's going to reverse that and do exactly what it was doing before. It's going to cut on the outside of that line. I don't have to do two separate toolpaths. When I calculate this, if we go and look, it's cutting on the inside of the line here and stepping out. Let's turn off the offset so you can see this exactly. turn off the offset. Let's go 0. Because I have both of these vectors selected, if I calculate them, it's cutting on the inside of the line like I wanted it to for the outside vector, but the inside vector, it's cutting on the outside of the line. It's reversing it. It knows to do that. The software is pretty intuitive. It knows to do that automatically. So now I need to put my offset in there. It's still a negative number, 0.0722, because I want to cut beyond the line. All right, so I want this to go beyond the line in this direction and this to go beyond the line in this direction. Anytime I'm going over the line, I don't care what direction, going over the line, that's a negative number. Away from the line is a positive number. I need to go over the line. So let's calculate that. Oh, we got to select the vectors. And that's going to fix my problem up here. All right, cool. And now let's really quickly, my quarter-inch end mill. Let's do all the quarter-inch end mill. Preview visible toolpath. This will make sense in a minute. If it doesn't make sense, I'm sorry I lost you if I lost you guys. Yes, is the 3x that the inside of the frame, Crystal, is still 3x5. The inside, what's pocketing right now, is still 3x5 inside, and that doesn't change anything. It's still 3x5 in there where the picture is going to go. Yep. All right, this is all the quarter-inch end mill work because I'm going to run that as one toolpath in that order, you know, the order that I have it. Make sure top is on the bottom, right? Top is first and then bottom, you know, I said that, make sure top is on bottom. Make sure top is on top of bottom, you know, that you're cutting from the top down. If I had that bottom toolpath in the list above the top and I save those toolpaths together, it would cut from the deepest to the shallowest. We don't want that. Okay, so there's my quarter-inch end mill. My 1/8 inch end mill is going to come and just do a little bit of 1/8 inch work, you know, on the edges and on that me and you. So if we preview those visible toolpaths, that's that. Now here's the key toolpath right here. This inner V clearing, right? This V clearing is gonna clear this upper edge. It's gonna chamfer it out, and the upper edge of this one, it's going to chamfer it in. Okay, so let's preview that visible toolpath. Okay, so there's the start of my chamfer on both edges. So here and here, right? It's kind of clearing that away. Now my next V bit is my top bit. That's going to do, you know, it's the V-Carves are all going to be saved together. The V-bits are all going to save together, but it's going to run in this order. My top text is going to continue that. So see how that continuation there on both sides. Nice. Then my bottom, preview the visible toolpath. Okay. And then finally, that completes all those cuts. Got a nice clean chamfer, no collisions or anything like that. Good. And then my V-Carve in the bottom of the area is going to be that. So my board has some dimensions and layers. You know, my border here, my frame is a little taller than the me and you by 1/8 of an inch. Then I have that me and you, which is text on text. So there's some levels there. And then I have some V-Carve text coming in here as well. And then I'll have a frame, and we have a nice little me and you frame, or you and me, frame, and everything. Little bit of, you know. So this one project wasn't supposed to take the whole class, right? But I was gonna, you know, hopefully get a couple little fun projects in. But this one turned out to be a little bit challenging because I screwed up, right? No, you're good, Crystal. I would ask that question too. Is the 3x5 going to fit in there still? And it is still 3x5. So, you know, just something simple. Let's look at the runtime on all of this. How many hours is this thing gonna take? All right, let's calculate or not calculate, but let's look at this. Hour and 41 minutes with my machine. My machine runs a rapid rates of 150, scale factor of 1.3, so about an hour and 41 minutes to knock out that cool little sign, right? And I got a cool little sign that I could change out. You know, the message doesn't change. You and me, in April 1945, we were together. Stronger together, you know, that infinity heart, we're going to be together forever. And so I could change out those little pictures. I'll take and put in one of those little antique little, let me show you what I'm referring to for those of you that don't know. Amazon.com craft binder clips. All right. Oh, they even got cute ones. So you can get these little tiny binder clips, kind of antique-ish looking binder clips and everything. Really cool for little projects like this and everything. You can get a whole little bag of them for $7. You can get, you know, them in black. You can get them in, you know, little colors and all. But it's the little crafty ones. Like here, this is, you know, a little pewter. What color is these? Does it antique nickel finish, right? You want to have a little antique nickel finish. You can do that. You know, they have all kinds of different ones, and that's what I'm referring to. And they're craft little binder clips, right? And you can get them there. You can get them in the small size. These guys, they're about 2 inches in height, or you know, or are they 2 inches? What's the overall size of these? 2 inch, 51 millimeters. Let's go to those small ones. Let's go back up to here, 1.25 inches. These little 1.25 inch guys, you know, they're only like 1.25 inches tall, about that tall, and stuff. Little small ones. You see them at the craft store all the time. And here's what I'm referring to. Let's see here, craft picture frame, right? Craft picture frame. And let's go to images. Got these cute little images. Let's see. Are they gonna make me look through 100 of them just to find one? So here's an example where they're used that's a that's a sparkly, that's a paper clip. That's a sparkly paper clip. Lord have mercy. Not a paper clip. Clothespin. Clothespin. Let's see here. Let's go back up here and let's be more specific. Craft binder clip picture frame. There we go. So you know, whether it be a frame like a clothesline pen frame, that's cute, right? But let's see. Here's a live, laugh, love. Here's a, here, come on, pop up. Show me your store, Bed Bath & Beyond. So that's little paper clip, or that's clothespins as well. Let's see here. Let's go to this one right here. Here's a little frame with a little binder clip in there, right? Little interchangeable frame. You know, cutesy stuff, right? Ours is better, but that's Target. But that's what I'm referring to, right? So you can do all kinds of crafty stuff. You know, help get a board and, you know, getting pictures just on a board, right? I mean, look at them go. Grandma, you know, there's a cute one with a little bit of twine and some paper clips, right? You could do that. Throw the kids in there. It doesn't have to be just a picture of you and her and things like that. So that's what I'm referring to when I call it the binder clip. You know, there's going to be a little interchangeable binder clip for photos in there, That's what that is. Cool. All right. Well, is the heart too close to the edge of the picture frame? It is. I mean, you can move it over a little bit, but it does clear it, right? There is clearance there. So it's not too close. But if you wanted to size it down or move over a little bit, but given the space that I had, I could move my frame over a little. I could move the frame over a little bit and stuff. So very quickly, open up all the layers. Well, not all the layers, just these 3 layers right here. Okie dokie. And the original also. Select all the vectors of this frame. And I could, let's do the date too. That and just, oh wait, I gotta unlock the original. It's important. Unlock. Okay. Select all those frames and the date too, because I want to keep that date center of that frame, and just bump it over just a little bit. Okay. Right. Let me undo that real quick. I got to select all of my vectors. There we go. I could bump that over just a little bit. Right? Not much. And then I could simply just recalculate all the toolpaths. Okay. And because I associated the toolpaths with layers for the most part and everything, I'm good. And if we preview all the toolpaths, let it go through one last time as we say our goodbyes, we can create a little bit of clearance by that heart, so, and all that stuff. Could you use a laser for the words, Wayne Hennegrass? Absolutely you could, right? You got to remember now, depending on your optimal focal point of your laser, that bottom of that pocket is 3/8 of an inch down, right? So if my laser needs to be 2 inches or 2 3/8 inches above my material to be at its optimal focal point, I'm going to be carving down in the bottom of that pocket. I'm going to be lasering, that text in the bottom of the pocket. So I need to adjust my Z accordingly for that laser operation, so that from that surface, I'm at my optimal focal point, my 0 and all. So for that particular toolpath, if you were laser engraving it, make sure your laser is focused above that 3/8 of an inch layer. But yes, you could. What is the actual run time? My actual is sometimes 15 to 20% longer, Bruce. So Bruce, and so now we've created a little bit more clearance from that heart. Okay, so Bruce, that's what the scale factor's for, right? So if you have a digital wood carver, Bruce, and let's say your machining time in the Vectric software says it's going to take 1.5 hours, right? If it took 1.5 hours to physically carve, that's a scale factor of 1. If it took 1 hour and 45 minutes, that's a 1.3 scale factor. If it took 2 hours, that's about 1.5. If it took 3 hours, that'd be a scale factor of 2, and things like that. So you would adjust your scale factor based on your machining time to get your estimated time closer to it. So this is going to take 1 hour and 41 minutes to carve. If I go out and run that, and let's say it takes, instead of 1 hour and 41 minutes, it takes 2 hours, then I would come back in and I would adjust my scale factor. I would adjust my scale factor to the appropriate scale factor so my time matches. And it could be 101.58, 1.56, 1.55, 2 hours, 36 seconds. That's about close I'm going to get. I would adjust that scale factor accordingly. If that's what it took on my machine, then I'm going to adjust my scale factor so my estimated times are more exact, right? But by default, the digital wood carver is 1.3. Okay, so you would just, when you run it, time it. Don't count the tool changes. Time the, from the minute you hit start till it finishes. You got to subtract the time that you did for your tool change and all that stuff. But actual run time, and adjust accordingly. Okay. All right. Camaro asked the question, how do you add a V-bit with a flat bottom to the tool library? So a V-bit with a flat bottom is an engraving bit. All right. So in your tool database, you're going to, select your category. In this case, I'll select engraving, right? We're going to click Add Tool, and we're going to come down and choose Engraving Bit. Okay? It's a V-bit with a flat depth. So you would choose your diameter. Let's say that the diameter of the shank is 1/4 of an inch. And the side angle, let's say this was a 30-degree V-bit, right? The side angle would be 15. Okay? The flat tip, let's say the flat tip on this was 0.005. You would get that parameter, that specification of what that flat tip would be from your tool manufacturer. Let's say that this was a 1 flute V-bit. And then you would set your parameters. Now, the cutting height on that bit, a 1/4 inch 15-degree V-bit, is going to be about 0.3 and some change. But for me, my pass depth, again, I always work with a 0.2. It's kind of my pass depth. We talked about that earlier. The step over could be whatever percentage you want. I do a 4% step over with engraving and V-bits, and a 24% step over with the clearance. That bit, depending on your manufacturer's recommendations, probably going to spend about 18,000 RPMs. And I run my bits kind of slow because of my machine. I run my V-bits always 35 and 25. I don't care if it's an engraving bit or V-bit or whatnot, but you could adjust accordingly, right? You would set your V-bit accordingly. And that would be how you install a V-bit with a flat tip. You click apply and lock it in. Okay. Cool. All right, everybody. Well, thank you. Listen, it's 10 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call it a night. I appreciate you sticking with me this long through all the screw-ups and corrections and everything. But we ended up with a pretty decent fun little sign, 1 hour and 41 minute sign that took 3 hours to design. All right. Until next time. If I didn't catch any of your questions, I will catch you. I'll catch them up in the chats or something like that, or the comments. But y'all have a great evening. Thank you for joining me tonight. We'll see you next Tuesday. And if you're interested, Wednesday the 24th, bear with me a second. I got to promote this. The 27th, next week, next Wednesday. So next Tuesday, we're going to have Spindle TV, our class. But then Wednesday, Burl and I are going to be holding a live on the Digital Woodcarver YouTube channel and on the Facebook, Digital Woodcarver Facebook page. We're going to be talking about starting and creating a business and working a business with a CNC machine. And join us for that discussion and conversation. Yeah, it'll be fun. So that'll be Wednesday at 7 o'clock as well. So, we start at 7:15 here on Spindle TV on Tuesday nights. I need that extra 15 minutes to get going. And then 7 o'clock is going to be the Wednesday, the 27th. If you guys want to join us, the guys and girls want to join us. But after saying that, y'all have a great evening. And until next time, I'll see you soon.